Welcome back to another episode of the Tacho Show. So, we are hot off the heels, of course, of Choose Your Legends 8. A very fantastic and phenomenal batch of Choose Your Legends. I think they did a really good job designing their kits and functionality and all that stuff. They all feel really good to use. I don't have Bernie, but from what people have said, she's a very good damage dealer. So, I think they did a great job here. And, of course, we are like 4 days away from the announcement of the refines for Choose Your Legends 6. So what we're going to do today is a bit of a speculative video. We're going to take a look at each one of these brave heroes and see what they could possibly be gaining out of their refines and whether or not it's going to be enough to put them back in the forefront of the meta. So we're going to start with Brave Seliph because he was that guy on release. I think it was undisputed that he was the best unit on the in the game on his release. So he has quite a lot of weight on his shoulders here. Can he come back to the forefront of the meta? Let's find out. So his weapon here, it's got Canto 2 innately, which is already very good. We have -1 special trigger. If unit or foe initiates combat after moving to a different space, then he gets all stats at 5. And he also deals X times 10% of foe's defense as true damage during combat, where X is the number of spaces from starting to ending position of whoever initiated combat with a max of 4. So at the time that he had this, there was nothing on the same level as this. Like, you were getting so much true damage out of this effect that there weren't many units that could compete with him as a DPS option. So if we actually bring up the calculator, we can quickly just show off some numbers here. Let's assume the enemy has 60 defense, and we're doing 40% bonus damage based on that. So, like, 24 points of true damage. At the time that this guy released, that was absurd. Like, units were not doing that. Nowadays, we have, of course, melt damage from units like Legendary Camilla and Duo Leon, and, like, there's a lot of units that can just do a monster amount of true damage. But that wasn't the case when this guy came out. So, that was one of the most powerful things that he had. Also, if his HP is over 25% at the start of combat, if the enemy would reduce his HP below 1, then he has Miracle built in. So, you combine the Miracle with the amount of true damage that he did, he could just hit the enemies twice and they had no way to delete him on the counter. So it's easy to see why this guy was as dominant as he was. Then couple the Canto 2 with the fact that he's also getting +1 movement down here. He's getting null follow-up and also attack and speed up 6. Air to Light is not going to get refined. Like, all of the unique passives and specials and assists that these brave heroes have are not going to get updated with the refine. However, this C skill is actually strong enough still that it's, I mean, as far as C skills go, I don't think you're going to replace this, right? Like, attack and speed up 6, null follow-up, and bonus movement, they could release that today as a passive, and you would want it. It would be very desirable on units. So, no changes need to be made here. He's got 4 movement. He's got a ton of true damage. He's got also Miracle to keep himself alive and all that good stuff. The only reason why this guy fell off is this. His speed is not high enough to double anything anymore. So 41, 45 if you get the super boon, that's not cutting it anymore compared to what units running around right now have. Like, Felix has got 48 with a super boon. So this guy needs stats. He needs stats ASAP, and if we take a look here, I've got a list of just some effects I think could go a long way into helping out these units. Of course, more stats is going to be on every refine. They always do that. But he's only getting +5 to all stats out of his actual weapon here. Nowadays, weapons are giving upwards of +14 to all stats, right? They have this new effect where if you have three allies in 3 columns of 3 rows centered on you, then you get like +14 to all stats. That's been the new norm, and I think something like that would go a long way towards this guy. Just raising his speed as high as possible is very important. Also, healing, I think, would go a long way on him because he can re-up his Miracle over and over. As long as he's over 25% HP, he can use his Miracle. It's only once per combat, but after you finish your first round of combat and you've been knocked into Miracle range, you want to be able to re-up it over and over. So having some healing on him innately would be very good. And then he doesn't have a way to pierce DR, so just give him like 50% DR cut on every attack. There's really not much that they need to do with this guy because the groundwork that he has to work with is already still very powerful. Like I said, the only reason he fell off is because he's not fast enough anymore. So there we go with Brave Seliph. All right, let's move on to Brave Crom up next. Now, this guy, he was very good on release. He wasn't like that guy on release like Celif was, but he aged really good. He aged better than all the other ones because of the way his weapon works. So let's take a look at that right now. So he's got -1 special trigger. He is effective against armors. If he initiates combat or is in 2 spaces of an ally, then he gets all stats up X, where X is the number of bonus and penalties active on him ×2, +5. Crazy amount of stats, right? Like, penalties and bonuses are everywhere. That's the meta right now. Like, any unit that comes out just has either you're giving allies start-of-turn bonuses or you're giving enemies start-of-turn penalties. So the fact that he gets juice from penalties as well is pretty gross. So he's got both of those combined with insane amounts of bonus stat potential. This guy can get like upwards of +20 on his weapon if conditions are right. So a very powerful stat buffing weapon here. Also, reduce damage from foes' first attack by 40%. And if there's a bonus active on him, then he gets special acceleration on hit during combat. And he has a unique assist here. He has a Fate Changed, which it's not too much different from Legendary Crom's assist, where he just repos and he gets an extra action. But this guy is borrowing the bonuses of whoever he repositions, and he also gets the extra actions. So this is still a very strong assist, regardless of whether or not it's going to get updated. You can still definitely run this and get a lot of mileage out of it. So again, like Brave Celif, there's a lot of good groundwork here, and you can still argue these two, Brave Celif and also Brave Crom, are still kind of useful. You could definitely use them and get some good work in. It's not like they've fallen off completely. So what effects could they give to Crom to make him like really excel and be that guy? So more stats, of course, like we've said on all these units, they're going to get more stats anyway, but for these units that are a little bit older, having extra stats to compete with the new units is definitely helpful, and his weapon's already giving him a monster amount of stats. So if he's getting more on top of that, what I would like to see is more stats that have nothing to do with bonus and penalties. Like, just give him, I don't know, like all stats up 14. If there's 3 allies in 3 columns or 3 rows or something like that, and then he still has this, then he's starting to get to a really gross level. Also, he needs some true damage and true DR based on the amount of bonuses. That's like the condition I would go for. They could do that in multiple different ways, like 7 points of true damage, 7 points of true DR. But basing it on the amount of bonuses that are active on him, maybe even penalties as well. Bonuses and penalties. Yeah, why not, right? Because that's already what he's trying to do. So why not? Just give him true damage and true DR based on that. And let's see here. Maybe like 2 times the amount of bonus and penalty effects active on him would be your amount of true DR. So if he's got 7 bonuses and penalties on him, then you would multiply that by 2 to get 14 points of true damage and true DR. I think that would definitely help out. And then support via assist. This is just like something I tossed in there because we've seen Arcane Lucina. She can go ahead and use her swap effect and then give allies treachery and bonus stats. I think that would be a really good effect to give to this guy as well. So like if he repos his allies, then he's getting a bonus effect on himself as well. Maybe something like treachery or dominance, like one of those offensive support effects, I think would be really good. So having him being able to do that as well for allies would be great. It's also buffing him. So there you go for Brave Crom. Okay, let's move on to Byleth up next. Now, the groundwork for this unit, unlike the 2 that we just looked at, is not really there, unfortunate as that may be. She's in an unfortunate position where the role she's trying to play, I don't think is really going to work out in the meta that we're in right now, but we'll take a look at her anyway. So, -1 special trigger. At the start of turn, if she's in 2 spaces of an ally, she grants null follow-up to herself for 1 turn. And also, if her special is at its max value, she gets time pulse at the start of the turn, so -1. And then if she initiates combat or is in 2 spaces of an ally, she gets all stats of 5. And if she triggers her special before or during combat, then she gets a further -1 cooldown after combat. So full-on times pulse 3, only all stats of 5 and only null follow-up. That's really the only thing we're working with on this weapon here. This is very cut and dry, very bare bones, very minimalistic. So this is why I think she's going to need the most help. And then we have Divine Pulse. This is not going to get upgraded, but as far as specials go, this is still one of the strongest in the game. So 25% bonus damage based on speed. We have 75% non-pierceable DR on the enemy's next attack, and then 20% bonus damage based on speed afterwards. This stacks, so like if you use this effect twice in combat, the 20% bonus damage based on speed will actually double on the second attack. So it's pretty crazy. Like, the amount of damage this can do is still pretty spectacular. The problem, of course, though, is that even though she times pulses herself at the start of combat, she is still very susceptible to scowl effects, and she wants to vantage attack the enemies. She has speed preempt, but, I mean, first of all, she has to be faster than the foe for that to even go off, and, yeah, 46, like we said with Celi, that's not going to cut it anymore, so she's probably just going to get hit first anyway. So, what could they possibly do for her? Let's take a look. Okay, so these are my possible recommendations. More stats, of course. Just 5 is really low, so bump that up to like 14, maybe even higher. And her speed needs to be way higher. They could even give her like a phantom speed effect. I think that would be helpful. Then I want her to have pulse support. So she's giving herself times pulse, but not anyone else. I think at the start of turn when she's getting no follow-up and the pulse, she could just as easily give that to allies in 2 spaces also. And pulsing is one of those effects that just never ages anyway, so we've seen that with, like, both of the Asker units, Duo and Mythic Asker. They're always going to be good because they have that pulse effect. And I guess Nidavellir as well, he's got the pulsing, so one of the strongest support effects and ageless support effects a unit can have. She also is going to need Null Sea Disrupt, because, like we said, she's trying to vantage tank the enemies. She's similar to, like, Attuned Erica in that regard, where she procs her special before the enemies hit her, and then she's getting non-pierceable DR, and then she could just proc her special again afterwards. Unfortunately, she has no way to get Null Sea on her own, because you can't inherit Null Sea on her as a B skill, or even give her Attuned Echo. So, Null Sea somewhere on this kit would be very helpful. Also, let her pierce DR when she procs her special, like Special Spiral 4, because right now, as it is, she's not really doing enough damage. She'll proc this, but it's not going to kill the enemy, especially not with any sources of DR Pierce. And let's give her damage reflection as well. How about that? So, units have that, like Nyx, who can just reflect damage taken and then turn it into damage dealt to the foes. It's on Brash Assault 4 as well. So, an effect like that, after she's proccing this and she's got all this true DR and they're hitting her, how about let's turn that back into true damage for her on the counter. And damage reflection is one of those effects that also has aged really well. If we look at some of the units that have that, like Nyx, for example, like I said, she's able to kill Emblem Mike just straight up through her damage reflection ability. So a very good and powerful effect there. And let's give her some healing as well, why not? Everything has healing now, so might as well just give some healing to this Byleth. Okay, now finally, let's go ahead and take a look at Brave Tiki here. I feel like she's definitely going to be the winner after refines are said and done, because which unit is it typically that wins the refine batch? It's always the bait unit, right? We've seen this happen multiple times. In CYL1, it was Brave Ike. In CYL2, it was Brave Hector. CYL3 didn't have a bait unit, unfortunately. CYL4 had Dimitri and also Edelgard. Both of them were bait units. CYL5 had Gatekeeper. He definitely won his refine batch. And then finally, CYL6, Tiki is the bait unit. So I have a good feeling she's going to win. And also because she was underpowered on release, they're going to want to like give her a little bit more extra love here. So what she does, she's got -1 special trigger, effective against Dragon. If she's in 3 spaces of an ally, she gets all stats of 5. She makes a guaranteed follow-up. And if her attack can trigger her special, she gets -1 before her first attack. Then also, if the foe can trigger their special, if she has 5 more res than the enemy, then she inflicts Scowl +1 on the enemy. And if the enemies have a ranged weapon, then she does adaptive damage. Again, like we saw with Byleth, this is really not going to cut it anymore. Brave Celi and Crom, it's insane looking at their weapons today and seeing just like how overtuned they were when they released. Because they aged pretty good. These two, on the other hand, did not. And it's like not that hard to see when you just look at what their weapons do on paper. They're not really doing as much. So she needs 5 extra res than the foe to get the Scowl. Really, they couldn't give her the +5. They had to give that to the enemy. Very unfortunate there. I don't know why they did that. And she does have a unique B skill. She has New Divinity, but you are going to toss this to the wayside as fast as possible. You're going to want to give her stuff like Lagoo's Friend. You're going to want to give her maybe High Dragon Wall or like Null C4 or something. Probably not Null C4 though, because she can run Null C Echo. So maybe like Bulwark or something like that. Something better than this. Even reopening from Alphonse would be a solid option, right? Because her being a dragon type unit, she can run Dragon's Roar, but it doesn't combo well with Lagoo's Friend because she has -1 special triggers, so it doesn't work with Lagoo's Friend. So instead, you could go with like reopening and then run Dragon's Roar instead to still get your true DR on B skill and then still get your true DR on special. I think something like that would be fine. So yeah, let's take a look at the laundry list of effects that I've got here for Brave Tiki. So first of all, more stats, obviously. Every unit is going to get that. Let's get triple scowl as well. Why not? Because Winter Byleth has that. He scowls the enemies by ×3. And it's pretty good because it can get around like Rally Spectrum and also Creation Pulse if you do triple scowl. So I think she needs to have something like that in her arsenal. Then let's scowl the enemies on every attack. If you see here, she's only scowling the enemies on their first attack. So units like Emblem Celica can just get the ramp on the second hit. Attuned Erica as well, she gets ramping on her second hit. So how about giving all of those guys the middle finger? Let's just scowl them on every single attack they do, so they can never use specials on Tiki. Let's give her true DR based on, and damage based on 20% of her res. That should be cut and dry. If she does not have this on her refine, I would be raising an eyebrow for sure. They're definitely going to give her this. And then let's nullify DR as well when she procs her specials. She could do that already technically with Lagoo's Friend, but like I said, you may not want to give her Lagoo's Friend, believe it or not. Like High Dragon Wall or Reopening are definitely legitimate options. So having her do that on her weapon itself, I think, would be good. Let's get some healing as well, because every tank needs to have healing. And then this is like a little bit overkill, but I think if she could do this, that would definitely solidify her as a badass tank unit, right? So nullify her own penalties and nullify the foe's bonuses. And I'm not talking like blue bonuses, red debuffs, things like that. I'm talking like hard stat bonuses. Like if she's got hit by Discord and Exposure and all that stuff, nullify that shit. Let's turn all of that off. And if the enemies have stuff like Treachery or Dominance or whatever, turn all of that off. So Tiki can literally be 1v1, Final Destination, 3 stock, no items, no shenanigans. It just 1v1 me, bro. If they give her that, oh my god. All of a sudden, we're looking at some juice here. So there you guys go. That is my possible refine adjustments for the Choose Your Legends 6 heroes. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and which one of these heroes do you think is going to be the winner after the refines are announced. So that's all for this one. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I will catch y'all again on the flip side.